Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something special, a piece of gear that honestly kind of shifted things for guitar players. The Electro Harmonix B9 organ machine.
Yeah.
We're going to explore how this little stomp box managed to change the game for instrument emulation, how it lets you get these massive organ sounds without, hauling around a B3.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, really, to unpack how this box works, how it takes a guitar signal and makes it sound authentically like an organ. We'll look at the tech inside it, and importantly, its legacy. Because the B9 wasn't just a one-off, it kicked off a whole family of pedals for EHX.
Right. And I think the real aha moment for listeners is understanding how this single piece of tech back in 2014 suddenly let guitarists cover parts that usually meant needing a whole other musician, a keyboard player.
Absolutely.
The sheer audacity of it still gets me. I mean, think about it. For decades, getting that Hammond B3 sound meant, owning a Hammond B3. Huge, heavy beast.
Oh, yeah. And the Leslie speaker, too.
Exactly. The rotating Leslie cabinet, another massive piece of gear, crucial for that swirl. Then suddenly, EHX comes along in 2014 and says, hey, guitarists, just step on this little box. Runs on 9 volts. You're good.
It sounds almost ridiculous when you put it like that.
It does, but somehow it just worked brilliantly.
So where did it start? It landed in 2014, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just, another chorus pedal or delay. This was EHX launching a whole new line instrument emulators.
And it was kind of a surprise hit, wasn't it?
It really was. I think it tapped into a need musicians didn't even fully realize they had, or at least didn't think was solvable in a pedal.
So technically, it wasn't built from the ground up. It had some EHX DNA already in it.
That's right. Its success really hinges on the fact that it leveraged their existing digital know-how, specifically the pitch-shifting algorithms they'd perfected in the POG and POG2 pedals.
Ah, the polyphonic octave generators. Legends in their own right.
Exactly. Those pedals were amazing at tracking chords, generating clean octaves up and down across all strings. That polyphonic capability was crucial.
Okay, but hang on. Pitch shifting. Okay, that's frequencies, math. Double the frequency, get an octave. Simple enough. But organs are way more complex, right? You've got drawbars, mixing harmonics, that percussive key click, the whole Leslie speaker thing. That sounds like a huge leap from just generating octaves.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's the genius of the B9. The POG engine gave them the foundation, clean polyphonic tracking. You need that so chords don't turn into a glitchy mess.
Right.
But then EHX had to seriously refine the DSP, the digital signal processing. They weren't just focused on pitch anymore. They had to tackle timbre, the sound quality itself.
So it wasn't just like sticking a filter on an octave effect.
Oh, not at all. No. They had to digitally model several key nonlinear things at once. First, those Hammond drawbars, how they blend harmonics to shape the tone, make it thick or thin. Second, they needed to simulate the Leslie rotating speaker effect, that complex swirling modulation that gives the sound its dimension. That's not simple filtering. It's modeling physical movement.
Wow.
And third, they had to capture the specific harmonic fingerprints. What makes a Hammond sound like a Hammond and not like, say, a Vox or a Farfisa organ. So they took their pitch-shifting expertise and bent it towards mimicking tonal character and even acoustic space.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's look at the controls then, because that's how the player actually interacts with all this complex modeling. On the pedal itself, you've got 4 main knobs, right?
Yep, 4 key controls.
You've got drive first. That's pretty standard, blends your original guitar signal back in.
Exactly. You can have pure organ, pure guitar, or any blend in between. Good for keeping some guitar tech if you want it.
Then, obviously, the organ knob, that's just the volume of the effect sound itself.
Straightforward. But the next 2 are where the real sound shaping happens. You've got mod for modulation.
And this one changes function depending on the preset, yeah.
Precisely. It's quite clever. On a B3 preset, mod usually controls the speed or intensity of that rotary speaker simulation, the swirl. But switch to another preset like the Cathedral one and maybe it controls reverb decay. Or on another, chorus depth or vibrato speed, it packs a lot into one knob.
Smart design. And the last one is click. Now, this seems like a really subtle detail, adding the percussive sound of the keys hitting. Why is that so crucial for realism?
The key click. It's fundamental to the Hammond sound's identity. On the real instrument, there's this tiny mechanical noise, a sort of thwack, right when the key makes contact, just before the note really blooms.
Okay.
If you leave that out, the emulation sounds too smooth, too electronic, maybe a bit flat. That little bit of percussive noise adds grit, realism. The click knob lets you dial in just how much of that you want. It's one of those small details that makes the difference between organ-ish and, wow, that sounds like an organ.
That attention to detail really sells it. And all this sound shaping feeds into the 9 presets available on that rotary switch. They didn't just give you one organ sound.
No, they gave you a whole range. You start with the classics, jazz, gospel, and classic rock. These are all variations on the Hammond B3 sound, but voiced differently, maybe emphasizing different drawbar combinations or harmonic content.
Right, tailored for those genres.
Then you get into more utility-focused sounds. Bottom end is great, especially for bass players or guitarists wanting to lay down a really thick low foundation.
I can see that being useful.
Octaves is kind of a hybrid, blends in octave layers for a richer texture, but then it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the cathedral setting, that must be huge sounding, emulating a pipe organ.
Exactly. Big, spacious, reverberant. You can imagine layering that behind a clean guitar part for atmosphere. Really evocative.
And then they hit the vintage keyboard sounds, too.
Yeah. Continental that nails the reedy, slightly thinner tone of the Vox Continental organ. Think 60s garage rock, the Doors, that kind of vibe.
Instantly recognizable sound.
Then bell organ, which gets you into that bright, buzzy territory, more like a farfisa. Surf rock, some early punk stuff used those tones.
Very cool.
And finally, rotary organ, which is basically designed to give you maximum Leslie swirl, just pure rotary goodness.
And all of this crammed into their standard little exo-sized pedal enclosure.
Yep. Easy fit on any pedal board.
Runs on standard 9-volt power. I mean, the practicality of it is just, it's huge. Putting decades of keyboard history into something you can toss in a gig bag.
So, okay, let's talk about what this actually meant for musicians out there, practically speaking.
Right.
Before 2014, if you were, say, a guitarist in a power trio and a song needed that B3 pad sound, what did you do?
Your options were limited. Find a keyboard player, deal with lugging their gear.
Or maybe use a keyboard synth module with a typically pretty awful organ patch.
Yeah, often thin and unconvincing.
Suddenly, with the B9, the guitars could just step on the pedal and cover those essential parts. You know, the intro to Whiter Shade of Pale or those classic rock organ riffs. Problem solved for countless cover bands, smaller original bands.
It really plugged a gap. And bassists could use it too, right? For massive low end.
Yeah, absolutely. That bottom end preset was killer for bass. And studio guys love it for layering textures subtly behind guitar tracks.
But the key thing seems to be the playability. Older emulator pedals could be glitchy, bad tracking, latency.
That was the Achilles heel for so many early attempts, yeah. You hit a chord and it would freak out or notes would drop out. Fast lines were often impossible.
But the B9, because it was built on that solid POG polyphonic trapping.
It just worked. It tracked chords cleanly, responded quickly to your playing. It felt like an instrument, not just an effect. That reliability is a huge part of why it got that sort of cult status. It wasn't just that it sounded good, it was that you could actually use it reliably, night after night.
Were there any downsides? Like, did it color your dry tone, or did you have to play a certain way for it to track well?
Well, like most complex digital pedals, it performs best when it sees a clean signal early in your chain. EHX usually recommends putting it before heavy distortion or modulation for optimal tracking.
Okay, makes sense.
But the sound quality itself was generally praised. I think the bigger adjustment for guitarists was more mental. Realizing that the notes you play translate directly into organ chord voicings, which might need a slightly different approach than standard guitar chords. But because the sound was so convincing, players adapted pretty quickly. It was rewarding.
So the B9 wasn't just a successful product, it was more like the start of something bigger for EHX. It basically launched their whole 9 series.
Exactly. It was the proof of concept. It showed EHX that applying their digital tech to instrument emulation was, well, a goldmine.
You can almost see the light bulb going off in their R&D department.
Right. They clearly thought, okay, if we can nail a Hammond B3 this well, what else can we do? They shifted from just making effects pedals to making practical instrument replacement tools.
And the follow-ups came pretty quickly, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. In 2015, just a year later, they released the C9. That one offered even more organ and keyboard sounds, maybe diving deeper into specific variations or adding things like electric piano layers.
More options for the organ enthusiasts.
But then, later in 2015, came the Key 9. That was a big statement. They moved beyond organs entirely, tackling classic electric pianos, Rhodes, Wurlitzer. those iconic sounds.
Wow, so modeling the time-based pianos, that's a different beast altogether.
It is. It proved the core engine could handle not just sustained organ tones, but also the percussive attack and decay of electric pianos at bell-like quality.
And then they got even more ambitious.
You could say that. 2016 brought the ML09, emulating the Mellotron.
And the Mellotron, the legendary tape loop-based instrument, famous for those Beatles flute sounds, King Crimson strings, notoriously finicky and expensive instrument.
Exactly. Suddenly, guitarists could get those haunting, slightly wobbly, cinematic Mellotron sounds, flute, cello, strings from a pedal. That was huge.
Incredible.
And they rounded out that initial wave in 2017 with the Synth 9, which, as the name suggests, tackled classic analog synthesizer emulations. Lead sounds, pads, bass synths.
So this whole 9 series, starting with the B9, it really cemented EHX's reputation, didn't it? Not just as makers of cool fuzz pedals like the Big Muff.
Right. But as a serious digital innovator, providing essential professional sounds that guitarists simply couldn't get before without investing in completely different instruments and learning how to play them.
And the strategic impact seems massive, too. The B9 took the sound of the Hammond B3, an instrument needing a specialized player, and delivered it convincingly to guitarists, who are arguably the largest segment of the instrument market.
Absolutely. It dramatically expanded EHX's potential audience, and it showcased how they could creatively repurpose their existing tech, that decade-old POG foundation, into something entirely new and highly profitable. The B9 wasn't just a good pedal, it changed their trajectory.
And the fact that the original 2014 B9 is still being made today
says it all, really. It speaks volumes about how well they nailed the formula right out of the gate. It just works.
So, okay, let's distill this down. We've gone through the tech, the sounds, the impact. What's the main takeaway for someone listening trying to understand the B9's significance?
I think the key thing is this. The B9 wasn't just a hit pedal. It was a foundational piece of tech. It demonstrated that sometimes the biggest innovations come not from inventing something brand new from scratch, but from creatively reapplying existing solid technology to solve a real problem for musicians. It kicked off this whole emulation trend at EHX, fundamentally reshapes their product line, and most importantly, it democratized access to these classic, iconic keyboard sounds for guitar and bass players everywhere. It really broadened the sonic palette available from a standard electric guitar.
That's a great summary. And it leaves us with a thought, right? The B9, the Key 9, the MEL9, they prove musicians are hungry for tools that let them convincingly cross instrument boundaries. Given how much DSP power has advanced since 2014, what's next? What complex, sought-after instrument sound is just waiting for the right algorithm, the right interface, to be packed into the next 9 series pedal? Could we see convincing orchestral brass, a concert grand piano, maybe even realistic string sections? The potential seems, well, still wide open. It feels like the guitar's sonic boundaries are still being pushed outwards.